마지막 강연은 그 NEM이라는 회사의 동남아시아 지역 책임자시고요. 스테판 치아가 준비를 해주셨습니다. Blockchain Features for the Future이라는 주제로 발표를 해주시겠습니다. Please move forward to the stage. 네, 여러분 박수로 맞이해주시기 바랍니다.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here in Seoul. And for NEM itself, this is actually probably 4th or 5th time we've been here in Korea. And we are starting to build a lot of presence in this country for our NEM blockchain. So today we're going to talk a little bit about kind of what are the features that we look at when we deploy a blockchain technology. Okay, so a quick background. Maybe this is something that a lot of the speakers may not have touched on. I assume everyone in the room would know a little bit about blockchain, but maybe for those who have not heard a different version of it, maybe I'll just share these 2 slides. Basically, I do this because I don't assume everyone knows what really is blockchain. So therefore, I like to explain it in a very simplistic manner. Basically today, if you were to send an email, when you hit send, you know that your email gets passed from one computer to another on the internet, correct? Similarly, if you were to send a file of any sort, you know that when you hit send, that file is transmitted, or little chunks of the file, or even maybe the whole file itself is transmitted from one computer and handed off to another on the internet, and next thing you know, your friend gets your file. But today, if we were to send a transaction of any sort, and it doesn't mean a financial transaction, it can mean a non-financial transaction, like for example, it can be a airline miles, right? When we send a transaction, invariably, you end up having a middleman. Now, who are the middlemen who help you with that transaction? It's mainly banks, of course, are the largest middlemen, payment gateways. How about Visa and MasterCard, the credit card companies? They are also the middlemen. How about some non-financial middlemen? People like maybe perhaps lawyers. They're your middlemen, right? Because they are the one that helps you do a transaction. Even something like, let's say, a land office or land title office. When a buyer purchases a piece of property, the middleman usually is the land office or the land administration office. But along comes blockchain technology. It changed all that because now we don't need a middleman when we transact with each other. That middleman today is called blockchain network, okay? So why is blockchain so prevalent or so exciting as a technology? On your right or your left, it's your conventional centralized database. Everything that we have today is stored in a great way, one way or the other, in a centralized manner. For example, the list of contacts on your phone, that is actually a centralized database. It's only stored on your phone. But in blockchain technology, it changed all that. Basically, 9 years ago, this gentleman by the name of Satoshi Nakamoto, I don't know whether it's a gentleman or a group or maybe a woman, we don't know. He said, I'm going to design a network. That network is going to be called a blockchain network. That network, what we're going to do is, we're going to take that list of anything, or that database. It can be a list of customer records, it can be a list of inventory in a company. We're going to take that, and we're going to take a copy of it and put it in multiple computers. And these multiple computers work with each other. So he wrote a piece of software that allows each of these computers on his blockchain network and says, you're going to keep a copy of that same records on your computer. What happens is, basically what he created was something called distributed ledger. A ledger is nothing more than a list of anything. And he said we're going to distribute it across multiple computers. Now, when that happens, it makes a very interesting feature, which means that if I were doing something on the blockchain network, if I lose that list, I know some computer on that network would have it. Therefore, everybody works together within the blockchain network. It also makes it interesting because today, if we have transactions that are, let's say, 1 million, we can have maybe 500 computers. But if we have 100 million transactions, we're going to add more computers to this network. And the nice thing about this network, within all the nodes of this blockchain, we are able to store the information securely because I'm sure you heard of the man-in-the-middle hacker. A man-in-the-middle hacker is basically, his job is to sit in between two computers and watch the traffic flowing between one computer to another. And he steals that information, right? It's very easily done if it's in a centralized database. I just watch your traffic flowing in and out of your computer. But in the blockchain network, all the computers on that network, when they talk to each other, the information is encrypted. When that information is encrypted, the man in the middle have no idea what's flowing through your network. That's the reason why it makes it extremely secure, right? The other thing that makes a blockchain network very, very powerful is that because it has this thing called immutability. Immutability means that when something is written on the ledger, it cannot be manipulated or changed by virtue of how the architecture of this network is. Now, because of that immutability, in fact, there are very few things in the world that are immutable. One simple one is, let's say your childhood memories. The first time you went to the beach, or the first time you went swimming, you always remember it, right? Nobody can erase that from you. So immutability in a blockchain environment is exactly like that. A transaction that's written cannot be manipulated. You can always go back to it, right? Because of this nature of this, blockchain becomes very, very powerful. Of course, it's also low cost because Satoshi said that if I wrote this piece of software, it's open source, I'm going to give it away. So that's the reason why the whole revolution of blockchain became very inexpensive way of doing transactions because of this open source nature of blockchain. In fact, NEM blockchain is also open source piece of software. There are other open source software that you know of, which is things like Linux operating system. Even your phone operating system, the Android, is also an open source software. So a quick glance in terms of what NEM is. Basically, 4 years ago, we have a bunch of very, very smart young people in the NEM community who said, we saw what was happening with the Bitcoin blockchain, which is the first blockchain, and they say, I think we can write a better blockchain. And what they did in 2014 was set out to write from scratch, without copying anybody, 100% new code of the NEM blockchain engine. That's what they did. So they took 1 year, they finished it. But what were some of the things that makes the NEM blockchain very different is that they created many firsts. One of the firsts was they created what was the multi-signature wallets, right? Now, in the early days of blockchain, one person has one wallet and one-to-one transaction only. But what if you are a company or you are an enterprise? You will need, similar to a company, you need a joint account, maybe 3 people signing or 5 people, right? So that 3 people approve it, then only that transaction is released. So we created what we call an editable multi-signature wallet. We also invented something that in the early days, we actually called it, today we call it tokens, but for us, we created a digital asset. In fact, you can create any digital asset on the NEM blockchain, and we call those mosaics. So if you are creating let's say, a loyalty point, that is a digital asset on the NEM blockchain. We call that the mosaics. You can create a share unit or even a commodity unit on the blockchain. We also borrowed something from the internet world. I'm sure you know domain name. Domain name is like, for example, if it's CNN.com or Korea.com, that domain name belongs to, let's say, CNN. Everything after that is owned by CNN. We said, why don't we do the same thing? We called it namespaces. Namespaces is if I am, let's say I'm from Malaysia, and I say, okay, I want to create a Malaysia loyalty point. So I will buy the domain name Malaysia. Everything after that is owned and under Malaysia. The reason why we did that is that when you have a digital asset that's being transported on the network, especially on the public network, you need the ability to identify it, right? So that's the reason why if, let's say, a company like LG decided we're going to create a LG loyalty point, right? So LG will probably own the namespace LG. And that can be transported throughout the network, and wallets can recognize it as an LG loyalty point, right? We also offered something that is very common in banking transactions, which is messaging. We can create transactions and attach to it a message. And that message, we actually have 3 flavors. A regular message, an encrypted message, and a hex message, which is extremely secure. It's very similar to how you would put, let's say, a message when you do a banking transaction, like an invoice number or a reference number, right? We have 2 flavors on the NEM blockchain. A public chain today, it's been running nonstop for the past 3 years, since 2015. In fact, it was started on April 1st, 2015, okay? So that public chain today has 1,600 nodes running. Think of the public chain as the internet, where NEM blockchain has 1,600 computers that you can use to transport whatever tokens or digital asset. We also have what we call permission chain, like my colleague from Eden Chain just shared a permission chain. Permission chain is kind of like your own private local area network, where if you are, let's say, an insurance company, you might want to have everything on your customer records or your policies on your own personal private chain, right? So let's talk a little bit about why blockchain technology is failing as a technology to solve today's company or enterprise problems. As you can see, if I go back here, blockchain does the blockchain thing very well. It does transactions very well. But unfortunately, today, blockchain needs to go beyond just the digital or cryptocurrency. There also needs to be a very easy integration, right, of the blockchain engine to current or legacy systems. Like, for example, if you have a company which has a system that's been running for the past 15 years, you don't want to have to redesign it or change it. You just want to have it more secure with the blockchain. There's also a demand for processing speed. Blockchain, unfortunately, because of the nature of its architecture, needs higher processing speed, or transactions per second, they call it, TPS. There's also demand for simple way to interact with the blockchain. Today, unless you are a developer or you know people who have learned about blockchain, it's very hard to integrate blockchain into your organization or your project. There's also demand for use cases. That means people say, yeah, this is great technology, but what do you use it for, right? There's also demand for low-cost, flexible systems, right? And of course, again, I refer to Eden Chain. They're trying to do that, to make it easy for integration with other systems. So within NEM, essentially, when we created NEM, we said people need to go beyond the cryptocurrency. And if you go to our website, nem.io, you will see this video, which is this blue color video. We can do beyond just the digital currency. Cryptocurrency is only one of the smallest applications that you can do on the NEM blockchain. You can create a host of other digital assets on the system, right, and to do multiple things. Then, of course, very, very similar to how Eden Chain approaches. We do everything with API. That means in order for your company or your project to use the NEM blockchain, you don't need to learn a language. You don't need to redesign your system. You just need to learn how API works. API is the language that programs use to talk to each other. The application programming interface, the API, once you learn how to talk to the NEM blockchain, whatever systems you have in the back can be integrated. So this API approach makes it very easy and very fast for you to integrate your current existing systems onto the NEM blockchain, right? So let's talk a little bit. There's been a lot of talk about, blockchain needs to be fast and, it needs to really solve real-world problems. But let's talk a little bit about transaction speeds, okay? Today, and for example, our version 1 of our software can do 200 transactions per second. If you take 200 transactions per second, multiply by 60 seconds, you get 12,000. You go on, and then you have, in a day, you get 720,000 transactions per second. 17,000, sorry, 280. In an hour, you get 720,000 transactions per second. Now, a lot of people say, well, 200 is very low, but then I ask a very simple question. Do you really need 518 million transactions per second in what you're trying to do? Tell me how many corporate enterprise systems out there does 518 million transactions per second, per month? Very few, right? So we say, okay, never mind. Our version 2, which we call Catapult, can do 4,000 transactions per second, right? So, but then I also ask the question, how many systems today need 345,600,000 transactions per day? I don't think many systems need that. Even the most robust systems that can handle nations' records may not need that kind of firepower. So I always ask, if you need a bicycle, do you need a rocket ship, right? So sometimes maybe comparing blockchains by their transaction speeds may not necessarily be kind of like the reference point, right? So one of the things that we make it, on the NEM side, we make it a little bit faster, is that we invented something in our new version. We call it that new version Catapult. It's like version 2.0 of NEM. We invented something called aggregated transactions, meaning right now, in typical blockchain solutions, when you send a transaction, it's one transaction to do one thing, or whether it's a push transaction or whether it's a pull transaction. But in Catapult, we implemented something very interesting. We said, why can't you just do one shot? You can do a few things all at once. Example of that is like, for example, what we call decentralized swaps. That means if, let's say, I am a buyer and buying something from a licensed seller, but we need to kind of pay the fees for exchange service. Something like maybe an eBay, right, who charges a small fee when the two buyers interact with each other. We say, why don't, with one transactions, we pay, let's say, in our case, the 3,000 ZEMs. We pay to the seller, and he gives me something. In this case, it's a license, but we have to pay 6 ZEMs to the exchange service. Now, that's a typical enterprise solution for that, right? So in one shot, we did it all in one transaction, done, right? We don't need to do 1, 2, 3 transactions separately. That saves a lot of time. The other thing that we can do is, for example, we can do very complicated things like, let's say Alice wants to use the payment app to go and pay Bob. She can actually say, I'm going to send $50 US dollars to Bob, and immediately that same app can send the fees to, the app can actually send a sub 0.2% or 20 cents from Alice wallet also. Now that saves a lot of time. So one transaction, boom, you get 3 things done, right? So we also do something called multi-level, multi-signature. That means you can actually use a blockchain to do multiple things. Simple multi-signature wallet that we created, you can do multiple things. For example, you can have, let's say Bob is a very forgetful guy, he keeps forgetting his stuff, so his mom say, okay, why don't I help you, and your brother and your friend, we all can help you. If you forget your password, we can help you recover it, right? So they invented one or two. That means if Bob's computer, or Bob forget his password, his mom can jump in and call the brother, and then they sign off on a transaction. Something simple like that, right? So it's possible, because you save a lot of, you solve a lot of real world problems. You know how people forget their ATM PIN number, and they go to the bank, they need to reset it, or they lost their ATM card. This is something similar in a digital world, right? So we can create very complex things too, where we can say, let's build a complex systems like supply chain. I don't even know this, so don't worry about it if you don't understand the structure. So anyway, we can create very complex supply chain solutions using just signatures. For example, you have inspectors can then sign off something, and the inspection is passed, right? But before we do that, once we do the inspection and the factory confirms the production date, then only the shipment can be done. We can create very complex systems using this method of signatories, okay? So version 2, we are very excited because it's in developer preview. Can you help me play that video? Okay. This is quite fun. I just want to show you. This is actually it's actually 1.5 years of our version 2 getting developed by our 3 programmers on NEM. Actually, we all have all of 3 core programmers, okay? What they did was, this is actually collapsed into 120 seconds. This is 1.5 years of work. And basically what they did was, they created a blockchain core server running on, for those techie people, MongoDB, which is a database of sorts. And they also built another layer that has all the SDKs, which is software development kits, that can talk to existing systems. And then underneath it, they built a layer where you can write apps for it. So this is kind of cool, right? It's a lot of work, but it's collapsed into 120 seconds for us. Okay. So basically what they did was they built the core components, and then they went out to build the 3 parts of the Catapult engine. So today, Catapult, our version 2, is up for developer preview, and we look forward to perhaps a little bit next year to release it on the open source, all right, on the public domain. So right now, if you have a developer, for those of you who are developing projects who want to play with Catapult, go to our website, and you can sign up and download the GitHub, the program code, and you can play with it. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it's very cool, right? So, so this is all of the potential ecosystem that you can do. And these are actually live projects that is already running on the NEM blockchain. If you were to do the QR code scan or go to our website, you'll see this. We have done things with payments, registration. We even have a platform. We've done gaming. We also have banking systems, even a loyalty program, a reward program powered by NEM blockchain. So this is important because you want people the ability to develop stuff with the blockchain, not just talk about blockchain, right? So one of my favorite is actually, I'm going to tell you about it, is LoyalCoin. LoyalCoin is actually Philippines' largest loyalty program, and they developed it on a platform on NEM blockchain, right? So this is actually what they are. So what they did was they said, okay, we are the loyalty program for Starbucks, 7-Eleven in Philippines. But the problem was each of those loyalty programs, they do not talk to each other. They're all silos. So LoyalCoin says that I'm going to use the NEM blockchain. I'm going to create a loyal token where you can take the wallet, go to Starbucks. When you buy a latte, you get loyal token or loyal coin. Then you go to 7-Eleven, you buy a Coke, you can also enjoy that. And now they just signed on Grab Car, which is like a Uber, and says that you can spend it. right? In Family Mart or in Grab, right? So this is a live project. They actually did a very successful fundraising last year, and today they are actually in nearly 6 countries, okay? Here's another one. Pundi X is actually a project out of Indonesia, and they said, we're gonna build the next generation point of sales terminal. The difference is that this point of sale terminal would be able to read debit card, credit card, Alipay, WeChat Pay, and able to have a QR code on the side to read any digital currency wallet. With this, they actually just created a next generation point of sale terminal. You know how you go to retail outlets and you see like they have like 15 different machines from different banks? Now with one machine, they just do away with everyone, right? So Pundi is actually powered by NEM blockchain, because underneath the POS system is a digital asset swapping engine powered by NEM blockchain, all right? So here's another one. Proxima X is also earlier this year, they did a very successful fundraising, and now they are in actually 3 countries with offices. Basically what they said is, we're gonna create a decentralized storage, because every time you make transactions on the NEM blockchain, but the problem was for corporates, for companies, where do you store your data, or where you store your invoices? If I were to store my invoices on a centralized database of any sort, I know that I might get hacked, or somebody might steal that information from me. So we created, or rather Proxima X created on the NEM blockchain, a decentralized storage based on something called IPFS. And they say that today now, your transactions are secure because it's stored on the NEM blockchain. And now even your storage is secure, where you store your invoices, your customer records, or even your inventory data on the Proxima X engine, right? So these are just some of the 3 use cases that's out there for NEM blockchain, and they are live projects already, right? So this is the interesting part. That means blockchain technology does the blockchain part very well. We solve with the NEM blockchain 3 of the issues that enterprise today are looking at. But how about the other 3? Simplicity, working models, business use case. How do we solve those? That actually depends on you guys, all right? If you're a developer, if you are a programmer, or even if you're corporate with an IT team, this is the part where you will say, okay, let's look at our organization. What can we do to change our process, and using NEM blockchain, or using blockchain in general, to create business use cases to solve the problems we have within our organization, right? So the green part is your job, okay? So with this, I just want to say thank you so much. It's been a pleasure coming here. Leroy, my Korea lead, he's here. So if you have any questions to ask about NEM blockchain, and I encourage you to go to our website at nem.io and learn a little bit more about NEM blockchain. We'll be very happy. And as a foundation, basically our charter is to help both individuals, developers, to know more about NEM blockchain, and to help you build systems for your projects. And of course, with companies and governments even, if you have a project that you need probably something like blockchain to solve it, we'll be very happy to actually help you discover it. And then perhaps NEM blockchain could be the blockchain that you're looking for to build such systems. With this, I thank you very much. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact Leroy and myself. Thank you so much.
네, 고맙습니다. Thank you very much.